The little boy clutched a torn teddy bear and whispered, "Mommy cries when I sleep. I wish I could fix her like she fixes the fence." The single dad standing nearby, with calloused hands and a broken past, froze. He hadn't expected a job to bring him to his knees. This wasn't just about nails and wood anymore. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. The hammer's sharp clang echoed through the upscale suburban yard. Too clean, too quiet. Mason Cole wiped his brow, the late summer sun baking his flannel shirt to his back. He wasn't supposed to be here, not really. A last-minute call. Urgent fence repair, they said. Big client. Fancy zip code. He expected a snobby assistant or maybe a stuck-up property manager. Instead, the door had opened to a woman in black slacks and a gray blouse. Her bun immaculate, but her eyes red. She barely looked at him. Backyard. East fence. Thank you, she'd said, then disappeared like mist behind the glass door. Mason had worked for all kinds. New money, old money, fake money. But this one, something felt off. Not rude, not entitled, just exhausted. He was midway through prying out a warped plank when he heard it. A soft voice, high-pitched and trembling, not meant to be heard. "Mr. Bear, do you think Mommy still loves Daddy? Even though he left us?" Mason stiffened. Slowly, silently, he peeked over the wood. A little boy, no older than 5, sat cross-legged in the grass. Curly brown hair, chubby cheeks, wearing a too small Spider-Man hoodie. He clutched a teddy bear missing one eye and whispered again, "She doesn't cry when she's fixing stuff. That's when she looks brave." Mason dropped his hammer. The clank made the boy jump, wide eyes meeting Mason's. "I'm sorry," Mason said softly. "Didn't mean to scare you." The boy didn't run, just stared, then nodded like some part of him recognized something broken in Mason too. That moment, brief as it was, changed everything. The CEO didn't speak to him again that day. Not when Mason gathered his tools. Not when her son, Oliver, he learned from the mail stacked by the porch, followed him like a shadow around the yard. But she watched. Through tall windows, through cautious glances, through the corners of her eyes while pretending to sip coffee she hadn't touched. Mason had seen women like her before, the kind who held everything together because they had no choice. The type who wore strength like armor, but were crumbling on the inside. He'd seen in his late wife before she passed. That silence that screams. That smile that isn't a smile. That exhaustion that doesn't sleep. So when the job wrapped up, and he packed up his tools, Mason did something he hadn't done in years. He walked up to the porch, took off his hat, and said gently, "Ma'am, I notice your son's treehouse steps are rotten. It's dangerous. I could fix it for free. How about extra lumber?" She blinked, surprised. "I didn't request that." "I know," he said, "but he looks like he could use a safe place to climb." Something shifted in her face. A flicker of something behind those tired eyes. Gratitude, maybe. Maybe pain. Maybe both. After a beat, she replied, "You can call me Claire." That evening, Mason returned, not because of the job, but because of Oliver. The boy waited for him, teddy bear in hand, as if Mason had promised something silently the moment their eyes met. As Mason worked on the treehouse steps, Oliver sat nearby. "Mr. Mason," he asked, voice hesitant, "do you think if I build things too, Daddy will come back?" The words hit like a gut punch. Mason didn't answer right away. He drilled slowly, eyes damp. "I think sometimes when we fix things, we fix parts of ourselves too." Oliver nodded solemnly, as if understanding far beyond his years. And from the window, Claire watched, her fingers trembling slightly around her coffee mug. Her son had not spoken this much in months. The sun dipped lower the next day when Mason returned, arms full of lumber and a lunchbox packed with PB and JS and 2 juice boxes, one for him, one for Oliver. He didn't charge a dime, didn't ask for permission again. Claire watched from the French doors. She didn't open them, didn't interrupt. But this time, her gaze lingered longer. Her phone rang inside the house. She ignored it. Oliver came running out with the same one-eyed teddy bear and plopped down next to Mason on the lawn like they were old friends. "Can I help today?" he asked. Mason handed him a small screwdriver. "Only if you're certified in bear supervision." Oliver laughed, the kind of laugh that caught Claire off guard. It was bright, full, and foreign in this house that had known only quiet for months. Mr. Bear is the foreman, Oliver said proudly. But he's kind, not bossy. Well, that's rare in a boss. Mason chuckled. They work for hours. Between each drill and every screwed-in plank, Oliver asked more questions. What happened to your arm? Mason paused. His left arm bore scars from burns and surgeries, a reminder of the car fire he'd pulled a stranger from, and the loss that followed. Got a helping someone. Worth it, I think. Do you have a kid like me? Mason stared at the boy, heart tight. I did. Her name was Lila. She was very kind. She liked building birdhouses with me. Oliver leaned against him. Didn't say anything. Just sat there quietly. Somehow, that hurt more than any words could. Later that evening, Claire finally opened the door. She wore a different look, still tired, still reserved, but softer somehow. I made iced tea, she said. If you and Oliver want a break. Mason followed the boy into the kitchen, unsure. The kitchen was spotless, but the fridge had drawings on it. Oliver's, clearly. One caught Mason's eye, a woman, a boy, and a stick figure with a hat. 3 hearts floating above them. Claire noticed his gaze. He drew that after your first visit. Said he made a new friend. The one with the sad hammer. Mason smiled faintly. That's a fair description. She poured the tea. No words for a minute. Just silence. Comfortable. Natural. The kind that didn't need filling. Finally, Claire asked, why do you do this? Work for nothing. He took a sip. Because someone once fixed something for me when I didn't know I was broken. A nurse. She sat with me in the hospital after the fire. Didn't know me. Didn't have to. But she talked me back into breathing. Claire looked down at her glass. I used to be like that, she whispered. I helped people once. You still do, Mason replied. You just don't see it. That night, as he walked back to his truck, Oliver ran after him. Wait, he shouted. Mason turned. Oliver held out the teddy bear. He wants to sleep at your place tonight. He says you're lonelier than me. Mason didn't take the bear right away. His throat tightened, the world blurring a little at the edges. Thanks, kid, he managed to say, voice low. Tell him I'll take good care of him. Claire watched for the doorway, tears finally falling. Not because she was sad, but because for the first time in months, someone outside this house saw them. Really saw them, and didn't walk away. The next week unfolded like an unspoken rhythm. Mason would arrive mid-morning with his toolbox and a quiet nod. Oliver would come running barefoot across the lawn with a fresh update on the treehouse fort mission. Claire, though still guarded, began lingering longer near the back door, sometimes even stepping out to hand Mason lemonade or wipe Oliver's face with a napkin while he held screws in his tiny palms like treasure. Mason never asked questions about the mansion, about the mother who barely smiled, or about the ring on her finger she no longer wore. But he noticed things. The unopened mail stacked like guilt on the foyer table. The framed photos in the hall where a man's face had been removed from every picture, cut out with sharp, deliberate precision. And once, while using the restroom, he spotted a bottle of antidepressants tucked behind a row of unused perfumes. On a Thursday afternoon, with the sun casting gold across the grass and Oliver napping under the treehouse with his head on Mr. Bear, Claire surprised Mason. She came outside, arms folded but not in defense, more like someone holding herself together. Do you want dinner? She asked abruptly. Mason blinked. You don't have to do that. I know, she said, but I want to. He nodded, and that evening, he sat at a white marble island in a kitchen that was more showroom than home, while Claire stirred pasta in a pot. The smell, real, home-cooked, not takeout or frozen, filled the space like memory. You know, she said, still stirring, the last man who sat here told me I was failing as a mother because I was working too much. Mason looked at her, eyes steady. He sounds like the type who only sees what's missing, not what's still standing. Claire chuckled, a dry, startled sound. He was a venture capitalist, charming in boardrooms, empty in real life. He cheated, left us, then tried to take Oliver with him. Mason's jaw clenched. He tried to take your son. He filed for custody 2 months ago, she said, voice brittle. Told the court I was emotionally unstable, that I had too much money and not enough time. Said Oliver needed a real parent. Mason leaned forward. What happened? She met his eyes for the first time without flinching. Oliver refused to speak during the hearing. Just sat with that bear in his lap and whispered, Mommy cries when I sleep, but she never lets go. That was enough. The judge saw. Silence sat between them, thick and intimate. I worked so hard, Claire whispered, and I still feel like I'm losing. Mason stood, walked around the island, and gently placed a calloused hand over hers. You're not. You're still standing, and so is he. That's more than most can say. For a long time, neither moved. The pot boiled behind them, forgotten. Later, after dinner, Oliver climbed into Mason's lap with his teddy bear and whispered, I wish you were my dad. Mason's eyes closed. He didn't speak, couldn't. He just held the boy closer, one arm around him, one hand over the stuffed bear's frayed ear. It was supposed to be just another morning. Mason loaded his truck with sandpaper, spare nails, and a few new paintbrushes for the treehouse trim. Oliver wanted it blue now, like the sky on brave days. Mason liked that. Sky on brave days. That's what this job had become. A place where grief could stretch, where healing could breathe. But when he pulled into the driveway, the air was different. Claire stood at the end of the walkway in a black blazer, her hands shaking as she clutched a wrinkled envelope. Tears stained her makeup, not fresh ones, no. These were old, dried trails like ghosts on her skin. She walked toward him slowly, like each step was a negotiation with the weight of her life. I need your help, she said, voice cracked. Please. Mason dropped his tools without a second thought. Inside the house, Oliver sat rigid on the sofa, clutching Mr. Bear tighter than ever. Claire handed Mason the letter. He's suing again. This time, he hired a private investigator. He wants to prove I'm mentally unfit because I let strange men into Oliver's life. Because I let you build a treehouse. Because I let Oliver bond with you. Mason's fists clenched. You gotta be kidding. I wish I was. Claire paced. He's got money, lawyers, and a name that people still believe in. I've spent years building my company to keep Oliver safe, to give him stability, and now I'm being punished for allowing one act of kindness. She stopped, faced him. I didn't ask you to come because you're good with wood, Mason. I asked because my son smiles again, because you showed up when no one else did. He swallowed hard, heart pounding. I don't want you to leave, she whispered, but I understand if you do. He looked at Oliver. The boy's eyes shimmered, too knowing for his age, too fragile for this fight. And in that moment, Mason made a decision. 2 days later, the courtroom echoed with polished shoes, shuffled papers, and the heavy air of wealth versus truth. Claire sat to the left, composed but barely breathing. The man across from her wore confidence like cologne, expensive and overpowering. Mark Langston, the father, CEO of a venture firm that had been in 3 scandals and somehow came out richer every time. He smiled smugly as his lawyer stood. Your Honor, we present evidence of a man with no legal ties to the child in question, entering the home repeatedly, interacting closely with the minor, and possibly exploiting the vulnerable mental state of Ms. Langston. That's enough. Mason's voice cut through the courtroom. Every head turned. He stood from the bench in the back, wearing a suit that didn't fit perfectly but dignity that couldn't be ignored. With all due respect, Mason said, stepping forward, I've never taken a dime from Claire Langston. Not a meal I didn't return in labor. Not a favor I didn't offer freely. And the only thing I've taken is the time to help a little boy remember how to laugh again. The judge raised an eyebrow. And you are? Mason took a breath. Mason Cole, veteran, widower, father, and someone who knows what it means to lose everything and claw your way back with nothing but kindness and calluses. He paused, looked at Oliver. That little boy saved me as much as I helped him. And if that's a crime, I'll take the sentence gladly. A stunned silence settled. Then the judge nodded, slow and deliberate. I've heard enough, she said. Custody remains solely with Ms. Langston. Mr. Cole, thank you for your service, both in the military and to this family. The courtroom exhaled. Claire didn't move. She just buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Silent, shattered relief. Oliver ran into Mason's arms seconds later, whispering, You're my real dad now, even if not on paper. Months passed. The treehouse was finished, painted sky blue with white trim and tiny flower boxes on the windows. The yard is louder now, laughter, music, sometimes even barbecues on Sundays. Claire opened up more. She began joining Mason and Oliver for meals outside, then walks, then late-night conversations that stretched into something deeper, unspoken. One evening, as they sat under fairy lights draped across the fence Mason once rebuilt, Claire turned to him. "You ever think about starting over?" she asked. Mason looked at her, really looked. Her eyes were still tired, but softer now, stronger, hopeful. "I think," he said slowly, "sometimes the best homes are built from broken pieces. You just need the right hands." She took his hand. "Then let's build something. Together." And there, with Oliver asleep upstairs, Mr. Bear tucked under one arm, and the scent of grilled corn still in the air, the man who once came to fix a fence realized he had built a family instead. Not from nails, not from wood, but from kindness, pain, and love strong enough to weather any storm.